For me personally, I think there was a number of reasons why I started driving an EV. Firstly, I think, as I've mentioned already, I was really interested in sort of future tech and where that is and where things are going. So it was really interesting seeing as cars developed new technology. And I really wanted to sort of look into that. And what I found is that once I started looking into it, actually it benefited me as an individual, both financially and in terms of my aspirations to do the best I could for the planet. And reduce my own, carbon emissions. So initially, this is years ago before I actually got to work within the EV space, picked a Mitsubishi Outlander as a sort of soft entry into driving EV, which was a petrol hybrid. It only did about 20 miles. But for me, that was perfect because I worked around about 7 miles away from my home. I could charge at work, which meant I could do there and back on pure electric. And actually, the more I drove, the more I realised it was almost like I was towing around a combustion engine for no reason, because I was purely using it on electric. And it really made me think about the way I was driving. And as an EV driver, you definitely think about that. You think about driving more cautiously to maximise your range. It hooked me. Anyway, I found it was just something that I thought was great for me personally, because at the time there was, and still is now, a tax benefit for doing so, but also really importantly for me that I was doing something in part towards supporting all of our future. Firstly, I'd say I'd really want to try and reassure you that it's perfectly possible. And having done it myself on a personal level, I found it absolutely something that's achievable for me at my level. And I do a lot of miles within my job, traveling around the country, visiting people. So I'm probably an extreme version of somebody driving an EV. But I totally understand when people are changing to a new technology, change is always scary. And it's important to consider what's right for you as a business. And at Centrica, what we certainly want to do is talk about how it will affect you, what you need to think about, the type of charging that's relevant to your business, and actually what you need right now, and thinking about what you're going to build out for the future, rather than just trying to get everything from day one when you probably won't use it. But in terms of anxiety, I think there's certainly a couple of things which people tend to pull out. A big one's range anxiety. Now, range anxiety is absolutely something that you need to think about, and how you're going to drive, rather than it being a problem, how are you going to plan for it. So, as I said earlier, I drive many miles in an EV, and it's just a case of ensuring that you pick where you're going, you look at what charging's in place for you to get there, and you plan that journey accordingly. And actually, for me, I found lots of really interesting places to stop and do something else while my car was recharging. So it opened up a whole new world to me when I was out and about charging. But range is one of those things I think cars now have, and vans as they come more into the EV world, have larger ranges. Cars are charging at faster speeds. There's currently around about 25,000 charge points in the UK right now. Whereas when I started driving an EV, that number was tiny in comparison. And as you think about, as the market increases, and there are going to be, as we move forward, and this becomes more mainstream, the number of charge points that are being installed today will outstrip that number significantly. So charging infrastructure is being put down, but there is enough charging infrastructure right now to support you on your journey, and that charging structure actually is changing in a lot of ways to support the vehicles. So a lot of vehicles that are out there now can charge at faster speeds, and the chargers that are being installed are there to support that faster speeding ability. So it means that the dwell time for you when you stop is reduced, the impact on you is reduced. The other thing that I think is really important to call out with regards to transitioning over to EV is the cost is within your gift to do something about. Certainly if you put charging at your workplace, you can control the cost of that energy that's going into the car, either through your procurement of energy or time of use plans, however you want to do that. Whereas going off to a petrol forecourt, away from home, that's going to be more difficult, right? Because you can't control that. But that's what's really important to think about, having the right charging infrastructure at your workplace to support your needs and your staff. We're all aware that EV is now mainstream. I mean, this is happening, it's moving at pace, and it's now about how we support that transition. So certainly over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a huge shift in the number of electric vehicles that are just in the marketplace. So Deloitte have done some research in this space, and they estimate that 65% of the vehicles that are in the UK by the year 2030 will be EV of some form and another. There's currently about 30 million cars in the UK, so that's going to be around about 20 million EVs that are in existence on our roads, if that is to be believed. Now, to put that in perspective, there's 600,000 EVs currently on the roads in the UK. So that's a 33 times increase in the number of EVs, and the transition away from ICE vehicles is obviously immense. So I think it's really important that as we go through that transition, businesses really think about how they can support their staff, their customers, their fleet with the right charging, and we can absolutely help you with that. With regards to charging at your workplace, charging at home, charging on the go, whatever that requirement is, we'll be able to work with you around a solution that fits you and fits your business. But I think as we go through that shift change, there's also going to be an interesting new market that opens up. So if you think EVs have actually been around for probably around about 10 years of, in volume. And I think as we move into from today even, the second-hand market's going to really open up. So if you were to go on Auto Trader today, you would see Renault Zoes with about 40,000 miles on them that are 5 years old, that are £5,000. That's a hugely affordable car for somebody to get into the EV space, and a lovely vehicle. And there'll be lots of other examples of that, and we'll see more and more of those vehicles come through. If you think, a lot of vehicles probably tend to be led through people having a company vehicle, and after 3 years it comes back into the mainstream. So I think we're going to see a huge shift change in the EV market, with a lot of people coming into it for the first time and firstly experiencing it from a second-hand purchase point of view. And also I think just in terms of generally, charging is changing already. So right now, in terms of vehicles, they have two types of charging mechanism, AC and DC. I don't really see AC charging changing significantly. Vehicles these days tend to charge around 11 kilowatts maximum. There may be a shift with some moving to 22, but fairly unlikely, or certainly maximising at that. But actually DC is getting faster and faster and faster. So DC is really used for on-the-go charging away from work, away from home, absolutely. And as we've seen, more and more vehicles are getting faster capabilities to take more and more charge in a shorter time. So when I started, it was around a 50 kilowatt speed that they could take. And now there's vehicles that are taking up, much higher speeds. And I think we'll see more and more of that coming into the mainstream environment, with like Kia, with the EV6 as an example, that the i5 I think is coming as well. So I think that will be a big shift change as well. And battery technology inevitably will get smarter and will probably take more charge with less weight, faster speed. I think those sort of things will definitely come to bear in the near future. But the biggest shift change really for us all is going to be the volume of cars that are out there and how we support that. So for me, the most important thing is speaking to somebody like Centrica, so we can support you on that journey.